What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a install video of our wing kits on 6th gen Camaros. Alright, so some tools you will need: ratchet, 10mm socket. I have a deep and a shallow. A little universal will be very useful. These are all 4mm Allen wrenches. Honestly, you can do the whole thing with this. I just use these because I have them. They're a little bit easier. A small drill bit, a 1/4 inch, or just one step above a 1/4 inch. A step bit might be nice, and a 1.25 to 1.5 inch hole saw. Obviously drill, tape measure, maybe a silver Sharpie. That's really about it. Kind of basic hand tool stuff. Alright guys, so the kit comes with obviously the wing profile of your choice. This happens to be our Fulcrum 14, which is a 14-inch cord single element wing. Obviously comes with uprights. Over here we have the end plates, assorted hardware, and some tools and stuff you might need. And the very first thing you're going to want to do is, as you can see, I have the uprights already bolted to the wing on the inside of the mounting tab on both sides, and I'm also on the same bolt hole on both. All right, so what we're going to do now is place the wing on the trunk, and unfortunately, this one, if you let it go, it'll tip off. So, you know, a friend, extra set of hands might be nice. You want to take your tape measure and measure to the side of the trunk or a known center point. This trunk has, I don't know, this little finish panel on it that we can assume is centered as well. And then you just want to make sure that the wing is centered on the trunk. Alright, so once you know you're good, you want to take your Sharpie and mark all the holes. You can always double check once it's off, and if we go to the edge, to that mounting point, we'll call it 12 inches, maybe 12 and like a 1/16. And same point on this side. You know, you can see we're about 12, shoot 12 and a 1/16. So now that we're centered, we can just drill all of our holes with a 1/4 inch drill bit. So I'm going to start with a small drill bit before going up to the bigger one. Certain holes will be going through double metal as well, so just be mindful of that. Alright, so once you have your holes drilled, the only one that goes, I'll say extra deep, is this one. So it'll be the outer second one, which is this hole right here. And as you can see, like I was saying, you drill through double metal on some of them. These holes right here, tying into this inner structure, is what gives the, even though it's a trunk mount, gives it a lot of strength going through where you have all this, you know, metal and shape and everything. This hole right here needs to be drilled out large enough to get a 10mm socket through it. So I'm just going to hit it with a unibit real quick. Something like that seems about right. And you can see there's the mounting hole we need to get to. This hole right here is a factory hole, and there may be like a little rubber plug on it. So you can see that's that mounting hole. So that just leaves these two, this one and the one on top, that are a little bit tricky to get to. So what we're gonna do, I already marked it out right on that silver Sharpie. So a little bit like left and up of this hole right here. I already did this side, and you can kind of see what we're gonna end up with. So we'll drill him out real quick too. Alright, so now that we're drilled, I'm just going to use a little deburring bit, or deburring tool, you know, get some of this sharp stuff off. Alright, so now we have access to every hole that we need. Alright, so we're almost ready to plop the wing assembly back on, but last thing we need to do, we want to touch up the metal around any hole that we drilled. So I'm going to show you a trick. If you don't have one of those little like bottles of like touch-up paint, which I do not, I'll show you an easy little trick around it. We're just going to use spray paint, you know, black. Obviously everything on this car, well, most everything is black. And what I'm going to do, I have a piece of plastic. I'm just going to make a little puddle of paint in there. grab a Q-tip, and this is going to be my little paintbrush. So it might be a little hard to see on camera, especially since it's dark in there. But we definitely have paint like on the bare metal at this point. So we should be able to see it on this hole pretty easy. There you go. If you need to do a second coat, you know, do a second one. So there you go. Now you don't got to worry about rust. So here's a prime example. The old wing, you can see in there, it's rusting. Old wing, properly stored where it belongs. But I'll get in there and I'll touch those up for them while I'm in here. But yeah, you can see the old holes were never touched up, started rusting. All right, so at this point, we're ready to lift the wing assembly onto the trunk. Now I'm gonna have to put you guys in a bit of a funny position. I need to get a few bolts in it started, because like earlier, you saw it'll tip off the back if I don't at least get a bolt or two in it. I got two on, so at least it won't fall. So at this point, I'm gonna start putting bolts in. I'll bring you guys back in and show you how to do these rear ones. That might be a little bit tricky. All right, guys, so I got the easy ones started, and I want to get these ones in here. Problem is, I don't want the nut to like fall out when I try and get in there to it. So for example, if I'm coming in and you get a little too much angle, you know, the nut's gonna fall out. So what you do, you take a little bit of masking tape, sticky side in, and then jam the nut in. And the thickness of the tape is like enough where your nut won't fall out. You screw it on how you need it, and when you pull it off, you know, nut stays and everything else comes off. All right, guys, so I'm getting ready to get the ones which would be on the back edge of the wing. That one is pretty easy because you can get straight to it. But come through this hole, we're gonna use like a little combination of tricks. So we got the tape trick with a nut in it, you know, so it won't fall out. We're gonna get up in there. I think you'll be able to see the nut right in there. Right there. And we're gonna turn the bolt from the outside. And we're gonna use the same trick for the other one that's back a little further, the one kind of on the top. And then I think you can see the bolt coming through, you know, so this little trick should get the last few. If you have a universal, this one's got some tension to it, so it's nice. If it's a little bit too stiff, put like a little bit of tape around it, so when you're reaching in there, you can kind of almost like angle it and hold it rather than it just kind of like flopping out of the way. All right, guys, so I'm on my very last one, and off camera, this bolt wasn't making it through. Chances are you're not going to perfectly center drill every single one, so you may have to run a drill bit back through them. Just run it right through it. No worries about the carbon. It shouldn't be anything too drastic. So as you can see now, it drops in, and I can turn it. I have the luxury of a 90-degree drill to get in here. Other option is just at this point you can take the wing off and then just come in with a regular drill to get it. All right, guys, so I got all these harder bolts to get. Quick little tip, I actually came through this hole that we made to get, you know, the back here, to get, what would it be, that one right there, you know, or for example, like going up, I was able to peek through this one as I'm coming up and in to be able to see. So it really wasn't too bad. Right now they are all loose. So what we're gonna do, oh, another tip, I closed the trunk latch so I wouldn't have to keep unlatching the trunk. Right now, everything is still loose. We're gonna crack these three loose that hold the foot plates to the uprights, because when we assemble these to ship them, you know, we just kind of put them where they go. There's gonna be a little bit of movement in these bolt holes. So if you crack them loose and then tighten down your foot plates, as you can see, you know, we made these off of a scan of the trunk, so they should fit very snugly to begin with. But that'll just kind of let them kind of like snug down without really like being held up by these. I hope that kind of makes sense. But yeah, at this point, we're right on the home stretch to start snugging everything down. All right, guys, so we're almost done. Everything is tight. Last thing we have to do is adjust the bump stops in the trunk, because, let's see, we're latched at the moment, but you can see how much the trunk moves, right? And all I'm doing is putting a little bit of weight on it. One of the advantages to, kind of how and where we mount it, that force travels through this inner structure, like we're tied in here, down to these bump stops. These bump stops have these nice little pads here to hit. The problem is, if you have interior on, you're pretty good to go. The amount you can adjust these down to take that loading, because we don't want all the loading just on the striker. But with the interior trim in, just adjust those to where they kind of hit and everything looks pretty good. This one, being a race car, as you can see, it's out, so we need something to take up some space. So these kits will come with these little aluminum blocks with some two-phase tape on them. All you got to do is put them right here. Make sure you wipe this off with some sort of degreaser or anything. You just want to make sure they stick pretty good. And we'll go ahead and get it adjusted. All right, guys, so here they are on. These are adjusted about where I want them. Now, before, I would just drop the trunk and it would latch. I gotta slam it a little bit, nothing overly hard. I'm gonna do the same thing and kind of pull here. And you can see there's a little bit of movement in the trunk, but it is much, much reduced, which means, the loading from the wing is kind of getting carried down into the chassis of the car. And the other benefit of having those spacers in it, when you hit the trunk pop button, you can see it actually pops up a little bit. So these little spring-loaded center bits, kind of just help the trunk pop. And while we're in here, you can see they weren't adjusted before on the old wing, and whatever hardware situation they had going on, you can see it actually came down and, hit this tail light. So I'd rather the force of the wing be going to the chassis than the plastic tail light. Alright guys, so there it is. End plates are on. Very last thing you're going to want to do is double check angle, because if you remember right, one of the very first steps we did was just randomly attach the uprights to the wing over when we were on the horse. Right now we're at, we'll call that about 7 degrees. This is how you check wing angle easily. You don't include the gurney flap, just like put it right there. Straight edge, angle finder, you're done. This is probably a little bit steeper than needed, but very simply, you just kind of find what hole, puts the wing where you need. That's all there is to it. I'm trying to think if there's any other notes. I think I mentioned earlier, any one of our single element wing profiles will work with this trunk mount setup. If you want one of our bigger dual elements, we would suggest coming up with some sort of maybe structure or something underneath. Because of the loading those wings can make, you would probably want to do some sort of like direct chassis support. Things that are customizable, the span, this is a 72. The uprights are customizable depending on what wing you go with. The whole pattern is the same, but since we make all of these in-house, and the foot plates are a separate piece, we can make an upright. If the wing needs to come forward, the upright would just be shaped different. If you want it higher, further back, whatever. Basically, our reference points would be like roof height, which this one is about 1 inch below roof height, and bumper setback. And this, this particular kit has 5 inches of setback. So customizing stuff like that, easy enough to do. So yeah, I think that's about it. There you go. 6th gen Camaro wing kits now available. Link down below.